In today's episode, I have Geoff Palmer from Fort Lauderdale area who went vegan in the year I said hello to this planet in 1985, who decided to compete bodybuilding at the age of 50 and would probably talk about that in a moment. Here's some super cool discoveries here with us about B12 to be found in plants, and also the the breakthrough in the omega-3 scene, where I thought, hey, what is going on? Because I always thought, hey, that I should focus on the DHA and EPA pills, and we are gonna dive into this today, and I'm curious on your journey, how you went from college and being a researcher, and then and joining the swimming team, and then eventually ending up at age 50 on a natural bodybuilding show. I would like to touch on the natural part as well, as I as well as you know that every here and there sometimes it's not supernatural. We might be able to just talk a few minutes on steroid use, and I'm introducing you from suicidal depression to a 35-year vegan successful business owner, because we're going to talk about your supplement business as well. I also want to talk about depression. And first and foremost, thank you for being here with us, and also for having this conversation, because I believe it's needed, especially for us men. And coming from suicidal depression myself, when I really close my eyes and I get watery eyes instantly, it's real, and it's happening every single day, especially amongst men. And Geoff, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That's quite an introduction. I can live up to that. But thank you for having me, and thank you for such an amazing platform to allow men to voice some things that aren't as often heard, and I think, as you said, is much needed in our society.
Yeah. Thank you, Geoff. Let's start off with childhood. So you and there's a story about family as well. Where was Geoff when he was a couple of years old? Was he dreaming about swimming back then, or like how did it all started?
Yeah, I was jokingly called Nature Boy when I was a kid, because I just loved being out in nature. The animals, the plants, just the natural surroundings. I was either on the lake, in the canoe, paddling around, just fascinated by nature. To me, it was one of the most beautiful and most mysterious things at the same time. Both of my parents were academics. My mother was a psychologist, child psychologist, and my father was a English professor, an existentialist. So, psychology, existentialism. I got a heavy dose of academia, but to me, what fascinated me most was how nature works, and how specifically this amazing gift we're born into, called the human body, works. And once I saw how intertwined our body was with the physical nature that we live in, that just opened up a storybook to me that fascinated me, and it's kept me going to where I'm at now at 57. And I'm still every day. My wife kids me and say, "Don't stay up too late reading studies." It's like candy to me, because it's just more we learn, the more we can see how fascinating this human body is.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. So you're super curious, and how old are you there?
I'm
Canoeing and
57
oh,
now.
so yeah,
Oh,
yeah, so
oh,
yeah,
when
yeah.
I was, but right out of the gate, as young as I can remember, my parents finally made me start paying for my own shoes because I would always take my shoes off and leave them and don't remember where I left them.
Oh wow, yeah. All right, and then this was in Florida. Is that where you grew up?
Yes, I grew up in Florida. My father taught at University of Florida in South Florida, and my mother also in those areas too. Also did some teaching as well.
Yeah. Any siblings, Jeff?
Yeah, so three siblings, two brothers and a sister.
Yeah. All right. And then how your father was he keen for having you following his path, or like how was the father figure for you?
Yeah, so my father, both my parents were very progressive, marched with Martin Luther King, were involved in civil rights and women's rights, even my father. So I was raised in a very progressive family, and part of that civil rights and women's rights is continuing in me and animal rights and my veganism. So that set of values and ethics really carried forward, and I feel like I've just grown more into that in my own, and still very much appreciated that upbringing. Although that upbringing in Florida, in rural Florida, um, was difficult. It was challenging. I was probably the only one in my school whose parents voted for a liberal presidential candidate, and being harassed for that and made fun of and stuff like that. So it was valuable to me as a person to grow up with that environment, but also it was very challenging since the vast majority of people did not think and feel the way I did, or my family.
Yeah, yeah. So what did it make you feel? So I mean, you were it was one too many, right?
Yeah, so I felt alone a bit. I felt ostracized. I felt that I wasn't willing to give up my values to fit in. So I became more comfortable spending my time instead of with friends, just outdoors in the woods or on the lake and being with nature, because nature didn't have a point of view. They're out there just trying to live, trying to survive, trying to cooperate with its environment, find food, raise a family, the simple things. And I felt that was my little, my saving grace, to be amongst that environment rather than the environment that I would be judged and ridiculed and picked on and stuff like that. So that was my solace I took in nature.
Yeah, yeah. And what was like city life in the 80s in Miami area?
At that time, we were living in Tampa, which my father was teaching at University of South
Okay.
Florida, and my mother there working there as well. So, um, it, yeah, it was a very different environment, and I felt a little bit like when I attended school and later in workplace, I had to kind of keep my own personal views to myself, um, and this led to kind of a suppressing. I kept my feelings to myself. I kept my thoughts to myself because I knew most people weren't in agreement with them. And that closing down just seemed to amplify more and more. And then, my family unit, where I could relate to, where we had amazing conversations at the dinner table every night, but I didn't feel comfortable carrying any of that conversation outside of our family. So when my family unit started to crumble, my father died before my 18th birthday. My mother died shortly after. I lost my brother to mental illness. I felt the family unit just crumbling. And that was the one thing I felt like I had, is to lean on, that my place to check my sanity, you know, that I'm not crazy. There's other people that feel and think like I do. And when that crumbled away, my outlet for who I felt I was, who I'm comfortable being, a loving, caring, sensitive, compassionate male, I just didn't know where to go with that, you know, what to do with that. And so that led me to just stifling more and more of my feelings and thoughts, and just to make it through days, to the point of the depression setting in. And really felt at a point that I didn't feel comfortable in this world as a whole. And I didn't feel where I fit in. I didn't feel where I could contribute. You know, the world seemed to be, you know, based on males needing to be aggressive, needing to be pushy or arrogant or self-righteous or competitive. I wasn't any of those. I was interested in collaboration and working with people and supporting people and revealing your true self, because, you know, you couldn't do that as a male because that makes you vulnerable, right? You had to show strength. And I'm like, but there's strength and power in being who you really are and being authentic and being transparent. That's where the growth happens. And I felt that, but I just didn't find that in the society around me. And so at a point, I just, the emotional, the mental, and even the spiritual pain just got to the point where I said, well, okay, I just don't really belong here. You know, I need to leave.
And where are we on the timeline?
It was in my teens, late teens, graduation from high school and into college, and then the drinking and the drugs. And I just was reaching for something to make me feel better. And obviously alcohol and drugs don't do that. They're temporary, and they end up compounding the depression. And it worsened to the point where I attempted to take my life twice. And I was ready to do a third time, but with 100% success rate.
Yep.
And I was fortunate to have somebody just walk into the bar I was sitting at, who was just beaming, full of joy. And at this point, I was ready to give up anyway. So I just asked her, you know, how do you get like that? I want to be happy. I really do. And I'm not seeing it. You know, I had passed the Mensa IQ test to go into Mensa, which is the high IQ society. I was raised by two people with near genius IQs. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out, why is this brain so good? I've been blessed with a great brain. Why can't it figure out how to be simply happy with life? Such a challenge. It should be the easiest thing. And to me, it seemed like an unattainable goal.
Such a thin line between a genius and an insane thought pattern, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you're sitting in a bar.
Well, IQ has nothing to do with EQ, you know, emotional quotient. And to me, that was where the suffering was coming from, because I had stifled my emotions, suppressed my emotions so much so that I couldn't find purpose in life. I couldn't find value in life because my emotions were so shut down. So.
And why were you numbing and suppressing?
Because the losses, really. I lost my mother to multiple sclerosis. I lost my father to alcohol. I lost my brothers, both of my brothers, to mental illness. And I thought, my God, what do I have left? You know, where's my support system? You know, my friends all felt and thought differently than I did. So I didn't feel like I had anybody to turn to talk about what was going on internally. You know, the guys I was hanging out with, you know, it's like, oh, depression, have another beer, you know. That was the mentality. And I'm like, That's not helping me. Sorry, that may be your your way of handling things, but that's not working for me. And and you know, I talked to this guy, and he really helped me back to taking responsibility for my own pain. And when you're in pain, that's the last thing you want to hear. I'm not responsible. It's everybody else that's doing it to me, and that's why I'm unhappy. And he just kept persisting and kept pushing me, kept getting me back to say, no, that's what other people are doing. Tell me what you are doing to cause this suffering. And I felt the layers peeling away, all the rationalizations, all the excuses I've made up for a whole lifetime of blaming others for my depression. And when I got to that source, it was my own fear of letting those feelings out that was keeping it. And when I just got that, I mean, really got that, it was like a dam bursting. And I just poured out tears, and I just melted into a puddle on the carpet and just cried for like half an hour straight. I mean, deep, soul deep crying. My gut was hurting. My cheeks were clenched so hard they were in pain. It was just pouring out of me, and I could not stop it. But behind all that pain that was being released was all this love that I inherently naturally had that was being blocked by this anger, this sadness, all this stuff that was sitting on top of it, like a rock sitting on top of a hole. And then when you uncover that rock, everything that's in that hole can be freed. And that's what I felt like. And I got reconnected to my love, not only to my ability to see love in others, but also to feel it again in myself. And when I can really feel it again in myself, I can see in others. And I think that's something that's so true. When we judge people or judge things around us, oftentimes, most of the time, it's a projection of self. You know, if you're angry, you're going to focus on news or articles or social media posts that are angry, because that resonates with what you're feeling. So you end up attracting that same circle. But when you break free and you find your love, your source, you will see it in everything else around you. You will start looking for it in other things around you. And that just changed my whole worldview. I was living in a mindset that said, I'm a victim of this world. What do I get out of this world? When I broke through and reconnected, re-empowered my heart self, reopened my heart self to connect with this amazing brain that I was gifted at birth, wow, just all of the awareness, literally feeling like I was born again, just rose in me. And instead of feeling like the victim of all the negative in the world, I now felt like, great, this is my opportunity to live my life the way I would like to. This is my opportunity to give to the world, not to get something from this world. I came here to give something to this world. And that's where I get my joy. That's where I get my happiness. And at that moment, I was like, oh my God, now I want to live. I want to be here. I have something to do. I have me to give to the world. And I'm going to do the best that I can at doing that for the rest of my life.
There we go. I love this. Wow. Okay. That is like an amazing awakening and transformation. But still, it is 85, and then you have opened up your eyes and you've connected some dots, and then what? I mean, then you're still in the environment where people think, "Hey, Geoff, I don't know about this," because then you decided to stop drinking, to stop drugging, and to go vegan. Did this happen overnight?
Yes. So once I had that breakthrough, I felt so relieved from my own pain. I was just buzzing. I was flying. I felt like I was floating. I mean, I started seeing aura. I started seeing colors. My hands were vibrating like I had them plugged into a light socket. It was just amazing how the energy flow was just freed. It's amazing that everybody knows when you feel really happy, your energy feels differently. Your body feels differently. Your brain feels differently. When you get really excited about something, it is a different. When you go from a moment of suicidal depression, wanting to end all life, to feeling like you've just been given a second chance and all this pain has been lifted from you, it was overwhelming for me. So I couldn't sleep. So I just stayed up all night meditating. And I felt so thankful. For the big thing was, for me, it was a feeling, just an overwhelming feeling of gratitude. And I said, well, how can I give this back? And I think that's something that a lot of people feel when they feel really given to. You want to pay it forward. You want to do that same gift back to others. And I just meditated on that. How can I contribute to less suffering in this world? Because I was helped to release my suffering. And the voice just came back to me and said, stop harming animals. And I was like, wow, that's just so obvious. How come I didn't see that before? I called myself a compassionate. I loved animals. I kept lots of animals, from nature. Why didn't I get that connection? It took that breakthrough for me to make that connection. And that night, it just all went away. I no longer wanted to harm myself. And I wanted to be thankful for this body I was given into. I mean, it's an extraordinary gift that we're born into a human form. I was in science class one time, and my science teacher was a Jesuit priest and wore his collar and everything. And I walked up to him after class one time and I said, most people in your religion aren't big on science, yet you're a science teacher. Can you explain why that's not a contradiction for you? And he said, Geoff, the more I understand through science about the miraculous nature of nature and the human body, the more it makes me feel connected to the divine. And I'm like, wow, I never saw it that way. Not as something that is contrary in belief, but something that is validating belief. That this is extraordinary gift we're given.
Yeah, and so, I mean, there's still magazines out there, and then it's this the era of Arnold and the bodybuilding coming in. Were you focusing on bodybuilding or fitness back then, or were you still you were in a swimming team?
Yeah.
So how was your how did your sport life look like, and what was the nutrition where you first thought of? For me, I thought I saw animals as protein sources, and I was chicken a day and scooping cans of tuna, and because that was what I thought. I read it in the magazines and stuff like that, and so can you tell me a bit more about what were you doing for sports, and what were you eating first, and then how was your transition? Because I mean, we're still talking late 80s. That's way different than now 2020, where everything is available, and kind of vegan cheese fondue and vegan sushi and apps and social media and everything.
Yeah, in the early 80s and 85, there was no internet. So, that wasn't even really a thing yet, and much less social media. There were no real books. I mean, I remember when one of the very first books, A Diet for a New America from John Robbins, came out. It was like, wow, this was a huge breakthrough. But I was kind of vegan before. I didn't even know the word vegan when I became vegan. I just knew this is how I feel and this is what I'm going to choose. I was calling it a strict vegetarian. I didn't even know of the word vegan when I did what I did. But yeah, I'm so pleased to see how the movement has changed and evolved and rapidly accelerated, especially in the last 5 years. I was on the swim team, and so obviously I saw my physical changes. And when I got into competitive swimming really heavily, I was eating 5,000 calories a day and I was shredded. And people are like, how do you do that? Eating 2, 3 plates of pasta just to keep enough energy, because swimming is a very intense caloric expenditure. You're using almost every muscle in the body. So I saw my body transformation and I said, well, that's pretty amazing. So in college, I really started to look at, okay, I kind of started creating my own degree, which is biopsychology. I was fascinated at how the mind works, but the mind's connected to the rest of the body. And the body is basically does what you put in it. You put bad stuff in it, you're going to affect not only mood and behavior, but all the rest of the body. And so, for me, that's where that initial connection came in. My swimming, seeing my body change, and then in my college years, seeing the chemistry that was going on both in our body and how it affected mood and behavior. So I was looking at one particular facet, and I wish I could find the study. I've never been able to find it again, but was looking at a particular chemical that was found in the body, and it was inhibiting a serotonin from being manufactured. Serotonins are a little happy chemical, and it's what most antidepressants target is serotonin. So I was like, okay, well, if that's inhibiting serotonin, it's stopping us from being happy. Where's that molecule coming from? And it was a molecule that was released in animals during slaughter. So the animals, obviously under fear and for their lives, and then being slaughtered, release negative serotonin blocking chemicals. And then we consume that, and whether that directly or indirectly impacts our body actually takes that. And at the same time, I'm looking at different philosophies and stuff, and I was reading on karma, and I'm like, wow, that's biochemical karma. You harm the animal, it releases chemicals into its body. We consume those chemicals, and those chemicals release into our body, and we re-experience this inability to feel happiness. And I'm like, wow, we are literally biochemically taking on the karma of the animal that we just slaughtered. That was amazing to me. And when I made that connection, I was like, okay, well, what can do the positive aspect of that? So being vegan and working in now health food stores, because I really wanted to promote a healthy lifestyle, I started to say, well, wait a minute, if plants do so many good things and animal products do so many bad things, let's talk about the real science. Since my field was science in college, I really wanted to start making those connections, because I felt, look, there's two big things that mostly contribute to our overall health, which is diet and exercise. We got to eat, we got to move. Obviously you need proper sleep, you need emotional support, you need, good air to breathe and clean water, less stress. Those are all important, but diet and exercise, if you can get those two pieces of the puzzle right, you can make huge differences in your health. So I said, okay, if that's the case, then there's got to be plants out there that contribute or deliver the health benefits that we're looking for. And because I was getting, back in the 80s and stuff, I was getting a lot of challenges. It's like, oh, you can't be vegan because you can't get enough protein, you can't get enough, your omega-3s, where do you get your B12? And I'm like, no. And this feels too right. It's better for our health, it's better for the environment, it's better for the animals, it's better for our energetic self. It's better on every level. So it's got to be true. I just need to find those answers to those responses out there. So I committed the rest of my life to finding just those answers.
Yeah, and you found some answers. Wow! Because in a second we will go to this super plant, which beats any other plant on the world, like beats spinach, beats spirulina, beats everything. That I'm super looking forward to this. I was just thinking of filming in a slaughterhouse, where I witnessed the slaughter of animals, and I totally hear what you're saying, that there is so much more than just the life of an animal. It's this whole energetic feel what comes with it, and it was just it was horror, and yet few moments I could be very fascinated by sensing what 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 else was going on there other than the slaughter process. And it was just so intense, and I truly believe that yeah, what you were mentioning before about the the karmatic uh, field and the everything what comes along with animal products, it is I don't think we realize how big this. I mean, we only know so little, right? We only know what we know. um I think yesterday I saw something that an elephant can bring their family safe when there is water rising, for example. And so why, when there is a tsunami, for example, why are there, I don't know if there's zero animals killed, or at least not so many. I mean, they can sense so much, and we can only I mean, we think we can sense everything, but I don't know. I don't think that we know what else is going on there. So thank you for addressing that. Makes me feel less lonely in the area of sensing and sensing more than just that. And then I'm also super curious. You were meditating already. I mean, now there are also apps and everything. And then I would like to go to the super plant. How did you discover meditation?
Meditation kind of came to me naturally. I was, with the progressive upbringing, my parents exposed me to a lot of cultural disciplines, and like yoga and meditation. And so, I grew up reading books on this and practicing it even as a youngster. I didn't understand the full value of it until my adulthood, until especially after my breakthrough. Then I saw the light bulb went on. Oh, that's what they're achieving with this. Yeah. That's what they're using this for. If you are not connected to yourself, it's harder to use a discipline like that and reveal the full fruits, the rewards of that system. Don't give up, though. If you're meditating and it still feels like you're just letting your mind wander, keep at it and keep trying to center, keep trying to focus, and eventually you'll find that aha moment where the synergies, just the energy just lines up and the clarity comes through. And it's an amazing experience. It's worth the effort, trust me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I fell asleep. I walked away. I stopped. I had so much resistance in the beginning, and now 5 years in, I'm like, oh yeah, as you said, it's so worth the effort. Okay, there's Geoff on a journey. There's gotta be plants out there. I mean, I have been getting these protein questions. I can only imagine how often you have been asked that same question: where do you get your protein from?
Yes.
But there's even like a level deeper. You were in search of a B12 source, because a lot of people, including me, at first thought B12 is coming from my steak. I sometimes, out of curiosity, I'm still asking people like, "Hey, why are you consuming meat?" Like, yeah, because B12, protein and B12. So, can you let us know, like, hey, okay, so B12 is not um, originally from an animal product, and
Correct.
you were thinking, okay, so if it's um, tell me more. You were were you fascinated by this B12, or did it come across?
Yes.
Okay.
No, and I had been looking for B12. So there's some research about looking at B12 producing bacteria in our gut. There's some science that says no, they're in the wrong place for it to be absorbed properly. The jury's still out on that. We have identified new bacteria. The whole microbiome field is exploding right now. Bill Gates is sinking big amounts of money into research, and the whole research field is blossoming. Um, and so bacteria are the only ones that produce B12. Animals do not produce B12, period. They don't. You know, interestingly, when people say, where do you get your protein? I tell them the same place you do. And they're like, what do you mean? You don't eat any animals. And I said, where do your animals get their protein from? They all come from plants. So 100% of all of the essential amino acids that make up every protein on this planet come from plants. I take that back. There's a few microorganisms that actually are animal in the animal kingdom. They're in the microorganism kingdom of bacteria that can actually produce a little bit, but no animal on this planet can produce essential amino acids. That's why we call them essential. They're essential for us humans and all other animals to get them from food because our body can't produce them. So the plants produce the essential fatty acids. Remember that word essential again. We have to get them outside of our body because our body can't produce them. Neither can any other animals. So essential fatty acids come from plants. Essential amino acids come from plants. Vitamins and minerals are made bioavailable by the plants. Fiber only comes from plants. Wait a minute. I just described almost every nutrient. It comes from plants. Why are we taking all these plant nutrients, feeding it to an animal, letting it incorporate it in its body, and then killing the animal to take those plant nutrients back out of the animal? That's just ridiculous. There does not need to be cycling of plant nutrients into an animal just to slaughter it, imprison it, you know, harm it, make it suffer for a lifetime, kill it, and then take the plant nutrients, which we could have just gotten from the plants themselves. It's absurd. It's extremely wasteful. It's polluting on our environment, and it's killing us. So a fascinating study I came across said, what happens if you increase the protein levels? What will happen? And it was a long-term study, huge population study. So it was a very strong study. And what they found was remarkable because in this particular study, they actually looked at meat eaters and vegans, vegetarians in two separate, but they looked at the protein levels at the same level. So both of them were high protein intake. So the amount of protein was exactly the same. In the animal group, they found a 400% increase of cancer, 4 times more cancer rates, and a 75% increase in all-cause mortality. That's all causes of death, heart attacks, diabetes, strokes, all the causes. Like, what's going on here? Well, when you look at the animal proteins themselves, animals take the essential amino acids and build up 2 sulfur amino acids called methionine and cysteine. If you look at methionine, and you don't have to take my word on this, go ahead and Google it, type methionine-dependent cancers, and you'll see a whole bunch of research out there. Methionine actually feeds like 19 different cancers, feeds them. If you want to feed cancers and make them grow in your body and take your life, then eat more animal proteins. Animal proteins are different than plant proteins. So when they looked at the plant proteins with the exact same high levels of protein, 0 incidences of anything, totally uncorrelated, nothing, no increase at all. So it wasn't the amount of protein, it was the type of protein. Plant proteins are very different from animal proteins. The other one, cysteine, converts into homocysteine. Homocysteine scratches up the insides of our arteries because it's crystalline structure, and it damages arteries, and then those plaques forms. Cholesterol, only found in animal products, not in plants at all. Then that cholesterol and saturated fat acts as plaques on those, kind of like a Band-Aid sticking on a scratch. Like if you cut yourself on your skin, you put a Band-Aid on it to cover it up. The body does that, except if you keep doing that, you build up plaques, and that's heart attack and stroke, the #1 and #3 killers of humans in the United States. So those proteins are causing diabetes, strokes, heart attacks, all the major killers, where the plant proteins are reversing them. The study showed that the plant proteins lowered the risk of diabetes, heart attacks, strokes, and stuff. I mean, it's just overwhelming that the exact same amount of protein could have dramatically different results. And so all protein is not the same, yet all essential amino acids, that which makes up all proteins in every single animal, comes from a plant. Why not get it from a source that is going to promote life, that is going to, defend against cancer, heart attacks, and stroke? Why eat that same amount of protein from an animal, cause all that suffering, all that damage to the environment, and then them killing you? Why choose that protein? Look, there's a new study that just came out a couple of weeks ago that says it's not only the protein itself, but how it affects in your digestive tract. When you consume animal proteins, it raises bile. Bile creates an environment where bad bacteria can live, and it suppresses the environment where good bacteria live. So animal proteins have zero fiber to them. What does our good guys feed on? Fiber. That's only provided by plants. So when you eat a plant protein, you raise the good bacteria and suppress the bad bacteria. When you eat an animal product, you raise the bad bacteria, which cause disease states, colon cancer, all these things. But it also breaks those proteins down and releases a chemical called TMAO. This is actually now being seen as one of the largest markers for heart attack dependency. So you are basically setting up through your own digestive process every time you eat meat, risking greater increase of heart attacks, the #1 killer of Americans. It's that simple. I mean, it's not just the meat, it's not just what's in it, it's how we digest it and how our microbiome reacts with it. Are you going to feed the good guys or the bad guys? Feed the good guys, only plants have fiber. Feed the bad guys, they create bile, which allow the bad bacteria to thrive. What do you want to create inside your gut?
Yeah, I totally hear you. And this is interesting because, there's a lot of people out there as well, and they say, yeah, I tried this vegan thing, but it didn't work for me. And I'm like, hey, okay, first we can debate, did you really choose veganism? Okay, so let's say someone adapted a plant-based diet, and there is a transition phase as well, because what you were saying, like, hey, your micro flora, it's set on dairy products, on eggs, uh, meat, chicken, everything. It has to adapt to a plant-based diet, lifestyle. I mean, you're eating way more fiber. You can experience bloating, excessive gas, stuff like that. It's not that it's not working. It's just your body is literally changing and thinking like, hey, I'm getting so many nutrients in now. Like, hey, how am I going to structure this all this what I haven't received for a while or in such a large quantity? Am I on the right track with that? That there is a transition phase with
Totally.
yeah.
Our body is incredible at adapting. When you exercise, what do? You feel sore.
Yeah.
And then what happens? Your body adapts and you grow muscle.
Yes, there we go. Yeah.
That is the adaptation process. Do you think that you can just work out once and then your body starts growing muscle all by itself? No, It adapts to whatever it is you are doing.
Exactly.
Your body is constantly adapting, whether it's diet or physical exercise. When you run for the first time, oh my God, you're going to be so sore. And you're going to wish you'd never run again, right? No, if you keep going, eventually you'll get better at it. And the more you do something, the more your body adapts and becomes even more efficient and better at it. And the soreness eventually goes away. So you got to allow this process to change. And some of the changes, like being sore after a workout, aren't pleasant, but that's your body adapting. That's your body breaking down materials that are inferior, that are bad materials, and replacing them with better materials, stronger materials in the case of muscle. But your digestive tract has to go through that too. The good news is that we found significant changes in the microbiome after a single meal. And as little as 3 hours, the microbiome was already shifting. That's how fast it can shift.
Yeah.
But you still got to give it time. Look, if you've been doing and eating some way for 40, 50 years and then expect changes overnight, that's not how the body works. It takes its time to do its thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that is all. I mean, we can talk another hour on patience and how important patience is. Maybe in a next episode. Okay, so then you are in pursuit of bringing value into the B12 scene.
Yes.
And how do you stumble upon a plant which is weed for many, which has been there for so long, and which is so nutritious, and the world wanted to remove it, like get rid of it. And then how did you find this plant which is more nutritious than spinach, kale, and spirulina and all that?
Well, I think there are a lot of plants out there that are really kind of waiting to discover. There's a famous Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that said, "A weed is a plant whose virtues have yet to be discovered."
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, duckweed, which is the name of this plant we're going to be talking about, also called a water lentil, or mankai has lots of different names around the world. But duckweed, it's basically that humans saw the ducks eating it, and we considered it a weed. A weed was something of no value, right? We were actually trying to spray it and kill it for centuries. But the cows ate it, turtles ate it, fish ate it, alligators ate it. One company was like looking at it and saying, well, maybe we can make a biofuel since a waste product, right? It grows like crazy. It's actually the fastest growing plant in the world. And that should have been a clue. When they figured that part out, if it can grow really fast, it must need a lot of nutrients. And to do that, to grow fast.
Yeah.
And of course proteins, because the proteins are what makes the structure, enzymes, DNA. When people talk protein, they think, oh, just muscle. And I'm like, okay, do you realize every single reaction in your body almost requires an enzyme, and an enzyme is a protein? That means every single process in your body cannot happen without proteins called enzymes happening. DNA is a protein strand. It's a series of amino acids strung together. That's protein. Hair is protein. I mean, skin, functional things are protein. There are even things called heat shock proteins. These are structures that work inside the cell, repairing the cell. Every time you go through an adaptation process, these functional proteins, these proteins, little balls of proteins, are going around fixing the cell, repairing the cell, recruiting new cells. So there's a lot more activity on the protein level. Amino acids make up neurotransmitters. They make up some of our hormones. I mean, amino acids are important. So I was like, okay, well then there's got to be some great sources of protein out there in the plant kingdom that we just really haven't found yet. When I found lentine, which is the trade name for the duck lentils, I was like, okay, lentine is extraordinary. And I read the research. I've worked with the company for over a year while they were gearing up to actually making a commercial product, and was the very first person in the world to bring this lentine to the commercial marketplace. It's the highest in protein of any plant we had discovered at this, with over 55% protein. It was higher than pea, rice, hemp, soy, even soy, which was considered the gold standard, higher in essential amino acids, higher in branched chain amino acids than any of the top proteins out there. So I was like, wow, that's amazing all on its own. But when you look at the nutritional impact of it, I mean, the iron, the omega-3s, the vitamin A, just off the charts, plus, the fiber and everything else, you're looking at the most nutrient-dense plant we have yet to discover. When you look at it at a per serving basis, higher than spirulina, higher than chlorella, higher than kale, spinach, even moringa, which was considered the top superfood in the world, this thing even beats that. And when you look at the fiber, the macros, the fiber, the carbohydrates, and the proteins all together, this thing is just a superstar. It's an exception to the plant kingdom. Just an amazing plant. Grows in just a few days, can be harvested 365 days a year. Almost 98% of the water is pressed out of it, so it's the most ecological food crop. Actually takes CO2 out of the air. I mean, it's just like a dream come true. The World Health Organization called this the most complete food source on the planet. And now NASA is actually looking at it for the trip to Mars because it can grow so fast and is so almost completely nutrient rich that it can feed astronauts for a long-term space flight. So it's just an incredible plant. It's a superstar of the plant kingdom. Now, I was the first to bring it to market where other companies turned it down because it was a whole food. We use the whole plant. If you look at most of the plant proteins on the market, they isolate out just the protein and then they throw away all the good stuff, the vitamins, the minerals, the fiber, the essential fatty acids. You don't get that in it. Well, they sprinkle some synthetic, vitamins and stuff back into the product to try to make it look healthy. But you're getting mostly isolated. We use the whole plant. This is whole food nutrition. But people said, oh, it's not going to sell because it's green. It doesn't taste as good as the chocolate candy bar flavored proteins on the market. And I'm like, I think there are people out there like me who really want the best nutrition, who are looking health first. They don't want everything to taste like a candy bar. They like food to taste like food, And I said, there's got to be people out there that feel that way, that want the most nutritious, highest in protein food source out there that can help them with their performance, their recovery, joint health, heart health, brain health, all that wrapped into a whole food plant. And it's a shame that the market kind of dictates that most people will be just using isolated pea and rice protein from China because it's cheap and they can make a lot of money on it,
Yeah, yeah. I would love to zoom into that because I used to track my calories, and then I would just I was just obsessed for getting my numbers right. I didn't care about how or where it would come from. I would just think, okay, I need 200 grams of protein, and I will get it no matter what. And what I'm hearing now is like, hey, you can get there's a different. I mean, yes, you can get your protein from isolated sources, or I could focus on getting my protein from soy only, or from pea only, or from peanuts only, and then but then I'll be missing out on a lot of other nutrients. And
right. And that's the beautiful thing about this. You're getting all your fiber, 50% of your omega-3s, 32% of your fiber, 60 to 70% of your iron. I mean, it's just so loaded nutrient density. It's the most nutrient-rich plant out there. So, but I was like, okay, now plants, this is where the B12 thing. So I was the very first to bring this product, this plant to market. And more recently, I was looking at research that showed that there may be B12 in this plant. Now, we know B12 is created by bacteria. So plants that live in the earth have a symbiotic relationship with bacteria. So the plants actually create extra sugars and amino acids and send them down through the roots and push them out into the soil to attract bacteria, which will eat those sugars and amino acids for their own health, and in return, break down nutrients in the soil and feed the plant. The plant feeds the bacteria feed the plant. What a beautiful thing. Well, in doing so, some of the plants actually take up the bacteria and they live in little nodules in the root systems. so that the bacteria can do their thing all day long in helping break down the nutrients to make it bioavailable for the plant, and the plant in return feeding the bacteria nice sugars and amino acids that it needs to survive. It's a beautiful mutual relationship. Now that's a plant in the ground, but what about a plant in the water? They're not in a root system. They're not in a fixed position that can attract those bacteria through the soil. So how do they do that? Well, that's where this plant gets unique. It actually takes up the bacteria into the plant itself and has that cooperative relationship. So you're getting actual B12 produced by the bacteria. It's a waste byproduct produced by the bacteria actually being inside the plant. And that's when we found out, hey, what if you actually just press this plant with there be still B12 in it? And sure enough, so the B12 is actually in the plant. Now that's amazing. But what I think we're going to find out is this is just the tip of the iceberg. What we've done in our modern manufacturing is with fungicides and herbicides and everything like that, it's creeped into the soil and wiped out all the bacteria. So you have basically dead soil that the plant is growing in. There's some amazing groups out there that are taking fungi and bacteria and enriching it into super amounts and then putting it in the soil, and the plants will grow 3 to 4 times the size of a normal plant because it has this cooperative relationship with the bacteria. And, you know, I want to tell farmers out there, hey, man, let's get back on the bandwagon. You can produce crops so much more effectively without paying for heavy chemicals or fertilizers or whatever. You know, you can let the synergistic relationship between the fungi and the bacteria really happen, and you're going to yield bigger crops. You're going to yield more nutrition in the food that we eat. And that's part of the secret of how these plants can be so nutrient rich and dense and grow so quickly is because the cooperative environment. Remember, in the very beginning of our story, I was focused on cooperation. Our society is built on competition. And I think they had it wrong when they said evolution is based on competition, survival of the fittest, right? Origin of species. No, I think it's cooperation. It's only when our cells start cooperating. Imagine all the cells in your body competing with each other. You'd be a mess.
Yeah.
And that's the model that we're going after in society. We need to learn from our own body that competition is not the best way to succeed. Cooperation. Our cells, our heart cells, our different tissues, our brain, everything is cooperating. Our bacteria is helping our body. It is 60, 70% of our serotonin is made in our gut. That's what makes us happy. If you want to be happier, feed your gut fiber, plants, you know, and that's the whole process. So when I saw, wow, plants have B12, but I honestly think this is just the tip of the iceberg. Once we start real, true, cooperative, collaborative, synergistic farming, we will see a boom in the amount of nutrition that's in our food, an improvement in our health, and farmers will get a lot richer because they're producing plants that grow a lot better and yield a lot more. So it's a win for everyone once we start learning from nature how to be synergistic and cooperative in our relationships.
Ladies and gentlemen, Geoff for president. Yeah, that will be fantastic, of course, and also great for farm. I mean, a lot of farmers. It's a big topic here. They are on strike already for weeks and blocking traffic with their tractors and everything. I don't have anything against farmers. They can grow crops and be farming whatever they like, if it's just super plants. I'm just super curious, how much of lentil do we have to scoop down? 6 pounds a day, or like, or is a tablespoon, is that enough?
Yeah, it depends on what you're focused for. So a single scoop of our particular protein, which is about 60% lentine, and then some pea protein in there to help balance out for flavor and stuff. And also because of the high fiber content. Most Americans aren't used to a lot of fiber, and if you're getting already 35% of your fiber in one single scoop, that's a lot of fiber for most people. Not for me. I do 100 to 200 grams of fiber a day, but that's my healthy microbiome is like partying down there, right? I'm getting fiber all day. No, you need to gradually, I think it's best to gradually start smaller and build up with it, so that your body gets used to it. Remember, there's powerful detoxification. It's really high in chlorophyll, really high in polyphenols. These actually assist our body in detoxification processes and elimination processes. So as you start going to a healthier diet and you're transitioning, your body can start eliminating a lot of these toxins that can lead to, degenerative diseases like arthritis and things like this, where the toxins are stored in our tissues and joints, causing inflammation. And inflammation is that cascade that leads to almost every disease state that we know of. Heart attacks are an inflammatory disease. Arthritis is, diabetes is really. So you're looking at things that cause inflammation, which are animal products. They're acid forming and inflammatory causing. Things that reduce inflammation are plant products. They're high in polyphenols and antioxidants and anti-inflammatory components to them, like polyphenols. These things actually reduce the inflammation and allow the body to clean and heal itself and repair itself. So, we hit protein, and it's clear plant protein is far superior for health, for the animals, for the environment, for every single reason across the board. And there's absolutely no reason, because none of that protein originates in animals to begin with. Second is the B12. We now see that B12 not only can be found inside plants, that it probably should be found in most plants, but we're just not doing the right processes. So I think this could be the tip of the iceberg to seeing a revolution of getting back to proper farming techniques that allow all of these nutrients to be found in the plants in super quantities to allow us to be at our optimal health just by eating a plant-based diet. And then the third was the omega-3s. So
yeah, 1 second before we go into the omegas.
Yeah.
How much protein do we need?
That's going to depend on age. It's going to depend on gender. It's going to depend on how much muscle you care to carry. I see things less is more. So it's not about the grams of protein. It's actually how much of that protein makes it into your bloodstream, and even more importantly, how much of that actually gets converted into proteins. Now, your body has regulatory factors all the way along the line. If it sees too much protein, it'll actually back it off. It'll turn it into ammonia and break it down. And our body has these negative feedback loops. It's really cool about trying to balance itself all the time. So getting the exact amount right, I see people hyper-focused on macros all the time, and I'm like, look, our body pools amino acids. So it will save some and store some, and it will use some. And so you don't need to be getting it exactly in every single meal. It's more over a period of time, because our body can say, all right, we're a little low on that particular amino acid. Let's pull some out of the amino acid pool and then use that for our processes. So your food, let's get out of this food fear that your food has to be exactly the way it is. That's just not true. Getting sufficient amounts of protein is important, especially if you're an athlete. You're going to need a little bit more protein, especially if your goal is to carry more muscle, like a competitor. I definitely need to consume a little bit more protein than the average person. But if that's not your goal, if it just maintenance is, you got to look at age, and then more importantly, how well is that protein that you're eating being absorbed and broken down? We actually use an enzyme called prohydrolase, which is a phenomenal enzyme. It breaks down the protein by like 98%. So you're getting almost 100% absorption of the protein that your body needs. To me, creating efficiency in the protein is more important than the quantity. If you can take 20 grams of protein and 98% of that is bioavailable, That's much better than taking 50 grams of protein and only having 30 or 40% of it become bioavailable, because you're creating a lot of taxation on waste, a lot of taxation on elimination that doesn't need to be there. So I try to get people to focus less on the quantity and more on the efficiency. How much of that is getting in and how much of that is actually getting into the cells so that you can make the proteins that you do. And are you giving yourselves the proper fiber, the proper omega-3s, the proper micronutrients, so that whole process can take place? Our muscles are not made by protein alone. It takes a whole lot of different factors to make protein assimilation happen.
And can we find out how much we absorb of that protein?
Yeah, so there are a couple ways of measuring that. One of the more common, more popular ways is called PDCAS, or it's a anagram for protein digestibility corrected amino acid score. So it's not just the amount of amino acids that are in the protein, it's how much is actually digested. So it's PDCAS. So protein digestibility corrected amino acid score. So it's the amino acid score, how much is actually getting into your bloodstream, but is corrected for its digestibility. So the higher the PDCAS number, the more digestible the protein is. So let's say rice has about a 70% digestibility, or a PDCAS number. And then, hemp, a little bit more like 60%. Well, then you look at lentil and it's like 94%. So that's where you want to get. The closer the number is to that, closer to 100 is really considered perfect.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is fantastic, and yeah, I'm also, like I said, I was tracking my macros. I was focusing on getting the numbers right, and now I'm in the past years I just focused on whole food, plant-based, as optimal as possible. I believe that there is a lot of how do you call this, when people are tracking and they get obsessed by it, that there is like disorders developed by being obsessed on what to eat, and it's 6 p.m. and I cannot have another. I was putting grains of rice back into the bag because I needed 300 grams and not 302. It was, yeah.
And it is, and I see that especially with the online and the doctors. I think they're creating a lot of unnecessary food fear. Hey, look, if you're being healthy and you're working out well and you're eating whole foods, take a look in the mirror each day. When you really get connected to that, you'll see, okay, last night I had some fun food. Today I look in the mirror, I can see the puffiness. I can see the water retention. I can see the extra pound on there for body fat storage. Okay, I'll put in a little extra work in the gym today. And then you say, but tonight I'm going to eat better and see what that feels like. And then wake up the next morning and see what your body has done. Do little check-ins like that with yourself. Use that as a barometer and you will start connecting. Hey, when I eat that food, I'm going to look like this. Hey, when I eat that good food, I look and feel better. And when you can get that mental association, you'll start reaching for the foods, because that will put a smile on your face. We eat the foods that make us feel happy. We just need to get connected to what that food is actually doing to our bodies. So check yourself in the mirror the day after you've had some meals. Remember what you've eaten that previous day and associate cause and effect. When I eat that, I look like this.
Yeah, tap into intuition. I mean,
exactly.
we have a we know deep down, we know. It's just that the challenge is to take time to sit on it, to meditate for a couple of minutes. After a few breaths, there will be this voice telling you exactly what's up. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so then we've covered the protein, we've covered the B12, and then you thought, this is not enough. I want more powerhouses, and then you thought, what is going on in the omega land?
Exactly. So obviously everybody's first thought, most people first think omega-3s, they think fish oil.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, the fish don't actually make the omega-3s. They eat algae and or eat other fish that have eaten the algae, and that's how they get their omega-3s. Again, animals don't make essential nutrients like essential fatty acids, which are omega-3s, or essential amino acids. They don't make them. We get them from food. Animals and humans are consumers of nutrients. Plants are producers of nutrients. So that is the chain. We're at the bottom of the chain, actually. When people say, oh, we're at the top of the food chain. No, we're at the very bottom. First it goes the sun, then it goes the earth where the nutrients are. The sun creates the energy. The plant brings the sun, the energy from the sun, combines it with the nutrients from the air, CO2, and the nutrients from the earth, and makes everything we need for our nutrition. So I said, all right, well then plants have to be better. But then all this research on EPA and DHA, right? So how many omega-3s are there? Do you know?
6.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah.
Most people
Yeah.
don't know that there's 6 omega-3s.
Yeah.
That there is ALA, then SDA and ETA, and then EPA and DPA and DHA. So there are actually 6 omega-3s. And yet all the research out there is only focused on 2, EPA and DHA. Why is that? Well, because EPA and DHA are preformed in animals, like fish oil. So the animals make them in higher quantities, and therefore they isolate them. But when you take isolated or preformed EPA and DHA, you're not getting the other 4 omega-3s that our body needs. Well, an amazing study just came out recently that showed unidirectional conversion. So what that means, it goes from ALA to ETA, then SDA, then EPA, and this is how it goes down the chain, all the way down to DHA. So everything at the top can convert down to DHA. So if you're getting any one of those omega-3s, they can all down convert to DHA. As a matter of fact, they found in the tissues, EPA down to DHA was very significant, was huge. So we don't even probably really need to take DHA if we're taking sufficient amounts of the rest of them. So the next argument was, oh, well, wait a minute, ALA doesn't convert to DHA very well at like 1% or something like that. So you need huge quantities. Now we know that's not true. All that we're looking at was in the bloodstream. Okay, so here's what it is. But then they said, no, it's in the tissues too as well, because we looked at whole blood. And I'm like, yeah, but that's still in the blood. So what happens, ALA, which is more prevalent in plants, right? That's the king of the omega-3s, because it can convert to all 5 of the rest of the ones. So it covers all 6 of the omega-3s. That's found in plants. So if you take the ALA and it's absorbed into the blood, the whole red blood cell, and then the blood cell takes it to the tissue, then it can convert down to whatever that tissue needs. If it stops at the heart, it's going to convert more of it to EPA, because that's what our heart needs more of. If it stops at the brain, it'll convert it all the way down to DHA. That's where the conversion is happening, in the tissues themselves. And it wasn't until recent studies that showed that's where all the conversion is happening. Now they said, okay, if that's true, will it back convert? And the absolutely no. They found that DHA did not back convert to any ones. So if you're taking DHA, you're not getting the 5 other omega-3s. If you're taking EPA, you're not getting 3 other omega-3s. I said, well, is it important? So another company did research saying, okay, let's look at what ETA and SDA and ALA do in the brain. They found that fluid intelligence, our ability to process information, increased significantly with that. When there was no ALA, SDA, or ETA, the top 3 omega-3s, they didn't see any change at all. As a matter of fact, there was an increase in gray matter. That means we maintained our brain, our ability to think and process longer throughout life. Well, I'm like, well, that's saying that our body absolutely needs this for optimal health. So they looked at, if you consumed only EPA and DHA, How much ALA, SDA, or ETA was in the system? Zero, because it doesn't back convert. So what this is saying is our body is genetically programmed to be ALA consuming, to get our omega-3s from plants so that it can convert to all 6 of the omega-3s that our body needs for optimal health, including the brain function. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. These are just the initial studies that are coming out. So all those people out there just taking EPA and DHA are robbing themselves of the full spectrum of omega-3s that the body needs to function at its optimum.
Wow. Is
Yeah,
there is there
this just turns the table on this whole idea that a plant, the animal nutrition in any way, whether it's proteins, they're worse. Whether it's omega-3s, they're worse. It's plants that are superior in every single way across the board.
Yeah. Wow. I was raised and I had to eat seafood at least once a week. And then when I was in my 20s, in Holland, there is the Dutch herring. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but
Sure.
yeah, I like five or six of those multiple times a week because of the omegas. I thought I have to eat this because this is the supplier of the of the omegas. And now I realized I can just skip the middleman. However, there is
there's science
there is
validating
science.
what we intuitively knew, but now the science is backing it up, that not only are the plants better, but the animals are either harming our health or robbing our body of optimal health by consuming them. So not only not as good as plants, they're actually worse.
For our health. And then there is the all the turtles and sharks and dolphins, like the collateral damage. And then there is the ghost nets, the fish nets, and everybody's not wanting a plastic straw anymore whilst having seafood. It's mind-blowing. Geoff, are you saying that we should only focus on then the plant source with ALA because that's the top one, or should
it is. So when we looked at plants, ideally you want a nice mix of ALA and SDA. So that's where the top 2 omega-3s are at. And if you got a good blend of that, you have a lot of the health benefits, because SDA on itself is anti-inflammatory and immune boosting and things like this. These are properties that you don't find in some of the other omega-3s. So it's like, okay, what is the richest source of plant for ALA and SDA? And I was fortunate again to be the very first person to bring this to market as well. And it's a plant called ahi flower. Ahi flower is grown, it's a seed, stone seed is what it's colloquially called. And that's why we haven't used it. You know, a lot of people say, well, if this is the richest source of omega-3, how come nobody's used it? Well, it's in a really hard stone seed, which is what it's called. Hard enough to probably break your teeth. But so now we have machinery that can break it open and extract this oil, and it's amazing. The richest source of ALA and SDA combination of any plant ever discovered. So now you can, and so they went head to head with it, and they said, okay, how well does that is the conversion process with compared to flax oil, just for an example? And they found it 400% better, more effective than flax, higher than chia, hemp, most of the other plant-based omega-3s. So now you have the #1 source of plant-based omega-3, the #1 source of nutrition and lentine in our clean green protein product. And now with ahi flower, you have that. So I feel very blessed to be that guy that gets to bring these super plants, ahi flower and lentine, to market and be the first. And we won the best supplement of the year. You can see the award right behind me, the Nexty Award for the best supplement of the year for both clean green protein in 2018 and ahi flower in 2016. And I'm proud to, you know, in the very beginning, I asked myself, how can I give back, right? And these are my give backs to the society, to go out there and find these extraordinary plants in nature that have this amazing research and be both an example, physical example at 57 of what can be achieved without drugs. 35 years vegan. I'm celebrating 35 years this month as vegan. And to give these plants back where other companies won't do it because it costs too much to market it. They're not as popular or whatever. But I want to do the right thing for the public. I want to give you the best that nature has to offer in a way that is accessible to the most amount of people. So that's my give back to you. I hope people out there appreciate it. And it's been a labor of love for over 30 years, using super plants when other companies won't, and allow people to enjoy the health benefits from them.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, wow. There's two things that I heard you saying. One was natural. Geoff, you are a super example, and I'm gonna, of course, put all the links from your business and where to get the supplements, as well as how to follow you on Instagram. Because guys, you do me one favor and have a look at his physique. It's impressive. You were saying natural. Can we cover that topic? Why natural is the world not so natural these days?
Yes. So the difference between natural bodybuilding and the typical bodybuilding that you see the big guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger back in his day is that they're using steroids. Not only steroids, a lot of them are using HGH, human growth hormone, insulin, clenbuterol for dropping body fat. These are very dangerous chemicals when not used properly and not good for health. I've seen so many of these athletes suffer heart attacks or die in their 40s and 50s because of the drug use. So it's dear to me because, you know, I used drugs for a different reason when I was young. And when I cleaned up, I wanted to be an inspiration of people to not use drugs. And I said, you know, through my workouts and stuff, people were saying, "Hey, oh, you must have got that from drug use." And I'm like, no, you know, I named my company Clean Machine because of this amazing machine that we have, the human body. I am encouraging people to keep it clean, free of drugs, free of animal products. You don't need them. I want to be that shining example that you don't need to take that path, and to try to encourage, especially the younger guys, not to do the drugs. You don't need them. Yes, it's going to take hard work. Yes, it's going to take due diligence to eating properly, but it's worth it because that's you doing the work. It's not the drugs taking credit for it. You can be proud of something, proud of being accomplished, saying that I did this all by myself without the use of those drugs. And, you know, I look at the guys, I have no judgment against people. Whatever you choose to do with your life is your choice. And I believe in that. But at the same time, we're in a social media crazed world. We're in a very influencing society. And are you setting the best example for young people by taking drugs and using steroids and being 300 pounds and 4% body fat? That's not sustainable. That's not healthy. And it's not a good message to send to the younger people that, hey, I want to look like that, you know. And
yeah, exactly. There's a lot of guys out there. They're exactly kind of using their physique and then selling 12-week super blast transformation programs, and it's not fair. And I've been talking to a lot of guys, and I'm hosting circles, and in the gym I have a lot of conversations, and it can be easily linked back to where we were talking about in the beginning, depression. Like a lot of guys, they're super depressed. They're aggressive, violent, hating them, and then they are in this cycle, and then they need it, and then they don't want it, and then they will shrink, and then it will affect their appearance. So they go back into it, and then it's, oh man, only for this, this these few pictures online. It's a big price they pay.
there's a guy who was competing in Tampa when I was in the area, and they found him dead in the shower. He was using a drug to burn off body fat. The drug burned off so much body fat. You know, our brain is about 60% fat. It started breaking down everything in his body. And in order to just get lean and look great on stage, his body temperature went up and he basically fried himself to death. He burned up so much energy, he cooked from the inside out. And he was in the shower because he had it on full blast cold to try to bring his body temperature down, and died in the shower. And I'm like, really, is that a message we're sending, that we need to be so shredded that we got to use drugs to look like that, and that it's killing people? And my heart bleeds for people, because young people are saying, like, how do I get like that? And then they're going online and they're finding these drugs, and they don't know how to use them, safely, and they're ruining their lives. I know so many people my age that have all kinds of joint deterioration from lifting so much heavy from the weights, who have destroyed their livers, who are breaking down their heart and had their third heart attack already. And I'm like, God, are you really understanding the price you pay for doing that? I'm 57 and I'm in perfect health. I'm completely drug-free. I don't take any prescriptions. I don't have any health issues whatsoever. My blood pressure is perfect. My heart rate's perfect. Everything is in line. It's because food and exercise. It's really that simple. And you can enjoy a great, healthy physique, enjoy being very good on a plant-based diet. You look at some of the top athletes in the world. The strongest man in America, who's got the American record in the Olympics, is vegan. So, this is and endurance athletes, Scott Jurek. I mean, the list goes on and on. Check out Game Changers if you don't believe me. Some of the top athletes in the world, top tennis players, the top everything, even race car drivers. They're vegan now. And the plants have the healing properties. They're where all the nutrition is. They're where all the polyphenols, all the antioxidants, all these phytochemicals that are doing our body good, that our evolution has built up over thousands of years of adapting to plant eating, and we're just destroying it with an animal-based diet, and we're destroying our planet. It's not sustainable. We can't feed our planet on an animal-based diet. It's impossible.
Yeah. So true. And before we wrap up, how often are you going to the gym?
It depends. Sometimes I have trade shows or events where I have to take a little break. And look, again, I don't obsess. If I need to take a couple of days off, or if I'm on vacation and I stop working out for a week, it's fine. My body will adapt and readjust, and I'll gain it right back in a couple of weeks. Yep. So, don't get obsessed with workout. But I do work out probably 5 to 6 days a week.
Yeah. And then
I really enjoy it, though. I look forward to getting out of the gym.
Yeah, that's what I always try to say. Like, hey, enjoy your workout. Like, so again, so many people are like stressed. Like, I have to lift like crazy amounts, or usually it's just hitting PRs every single training session. Like, hey, just enjoy. So what we're saying, what you were saying about these guys, and then for example on steroids, and then they lift abnormal amount of weights, and then the price they pay is either knee pain to death. Are you like maxing all the time, or are you like playing with the weights? Are you intuitive? You're an intuitive eater now. Are you also an intuitive gym goer now? Like how does this work?
Yeah, totally. So I actually wrote a book on adaptogens. This book here, Heat Shock Protein. So on these intracellular structures called heat shock proteins, that they are responsible for adaptation. So I go through a series of 2 weeks of one style of lifting, and then 2 weeks of another style of lifting, and then 2 weeks of another style of lifting, even before I get to heavy weights. So I use a high volume training, which is like 5x20s, 5 sets of 20 reps. That stresses and strengthens certain types of muscle fibers. There are multiple types of fibers. And then I use a short burst energy type lifting. And then I'll do a super slows, which is taking 3 seconds to lower the weight and 3 seconds to raise the weight. You'll find out how hard that is. You'll use a lot less weight, but what you're doing is you're stressing the muscle in lots of different ways so it has time to adapt. And then, and only then, when I've gone through 6 to 8 weeks of adaptive training to get the muscle fibers all prepared, the tendons strengthen too. Because remember, it's not just about the muscle. Most people have tendon tears than muscle tears. And it's the tendons that give away, because tendons take longer to adapt than muscle tissue. Muscle tissue will adapt pretty rapidly. Tendons take a lot longer to adapt. So give your body time to adapt before you start just going with the weights, because your muscles may be able to handle a higher weight, but your tendons may not. And when you snap a tendon, it's a game changer for you. You don't want to go there. It's not worth it. Don't lift with your ego. Lift with your body, but develop your body to be prepared. Just like you wouldn't go on stage without rehearsing your lines, right? You'd look like
Totally.
a fool.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So rehearse your body too. Give it time to adapt using lots of different training strategies, and you'll be much stronger when you go there, but your tendons will also be able to support the heavier weights too when you try. I never train heavy super, but the weights that I do lift at 57, like I do 425-pound press downs, tricep press downs. And most people in the gym are like, you're almost 60 years old and you're doing 425 pounds on that. But I know my limits. I know that's about my physiological limit, and I'm okay with that. I work out with that. I do reps with that. I'm not about just trying to see how much I can lift in one set. I mean, what are you going to do? Impress half a dozen guys in the gym for a minute? No, it's the body that you wear on the beach for the other 24/7, right? It's how you're perceived, how you feel. Are you healthy? Are you tearing down tissues because you're maxing out a weight? Okay, you got an ego lift for 15 minutes, and now you've got an injury that's going to take you out of the gym for 6 months. Why? Why do that? Don't do that. Live smart.
Yeah, some beautiful advice there. Yeah. Well, is there one more piece of advice, not covering nutrition or training? As you are now a man with a lot of experience, what would you say? Like, hey, I wish I knew this when I just got started. So let's say there's a guy now here listening to the show. He's in his late teens or early 20s. He's like, hey, I'm down. I'm gonna join the vegan fit family. And what would you like to tell him?
Yeah, so a lot of people think of changing their diet as giving up something, right? Oh, I'm going to give up meat. I'm going to give up ice cream. I'm going to give up the things that I love. You have to change your mindset to say, no, I'm getting rid of things that are doing my body harm. I'm getting rid of things that drag down my performance in the gym. I'm adding things that are better for me, better for the environment, better for my health, better for my performance in the gym. So don't think of it as what you're losing. Think of it as what you're getting. And if you can focus on that, that's an empowerment. So here's the disempowerment scenario that we've got set up in modern day society. The big food companies are all feeding you crap because it tastes good, right? Refined sugar, refined flour, all the crap that we know that's not good for us, but it tastes great, right? Quick fixes. So they are feeding you crap. And then you have to go to the doctor because that crap eventually tears down your body. And then the doctor says, okay, I'll take your money. And says you got to go get this prescription because you're treated yourself. Then the pharmaceutical company says, okay, I'm going to take your money. And then you go to the hospital because now it's to the point where you're getting heart attacks, diabetes, and strokes and stuff. And they say, okay, I'm going to take your money. You've got somebody taking your money and banking on you being disempowered by choosing foods that cause ill health. Every single one of those, the food companies, the doctors, the pharmaceuticals, the hospitals, the insurance companies. Oh, you're afraid that you're going to get the heart attacks like your father did? I'm going to take your money. You don't need any. I don't see doctors. Never, not in the last 20 years. I don't take any prescription medications. I've not been to a hospital, and I don't carry insurance. My insurance is my nutrition. That's what I invest in, my body. This is empowering. This is you taking back control over your health. And whether you end up obese, bald, and dead, sick and dead, you don't have to live that lifestyle. You don't have to follow in that path where everybody takes from you until you have nothing left, not even your health. When you take your empowerment back and you choose the foods that are right for you. I'm 57 years of age, the best condition of my health and physical fitness level of my entire life, all on plants. That's the amazing gift. That's the empowerment. Take charge of your life. Don't follow that path that every one of those sheeple do. The people just following the other sheep herd. You don't have to take that path. Do what's right for your best health, and you will be so thankful you did. And it's never too late to start. I don't care if you're 50 or 60 or 80 or 20. Start now, and you're going to enjoy the benefits for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. We were just mentioning like a guy in his 20s, but also there's a lot of men I see out there in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're giving up, complaining, like, hey, you might have still 30, 40, 50 years in front of you. Might as well just, make the switch.
And it's not true in any age. And that's why I want to be a shining example to people. Dr. Dean Ornish has done some amazing work reversing heart attacks on a plant-based diet. Numerous amounts of people. Chris Beat Cancer is another guy out there, has changed it just by changing his diet and beat cancer. So, I mean, look, don't give up hope, and it's never too late. You can always enjoy the benefits. I tell people, I say, okay, as a man, what is one of our biggest things that we should do? And that's protect our family, right? And can you look into your daughter or your child's eyes and say, I'm going to choose this hamburger, which is going to give me a heart attack, which means I won't be there to see you graduate? Can you look into her eyes and say that? As a father, as a man, your responsibility to be there for them. My father wasn't there for me. He died at 18 because of what he put in his mouth. If you want to be a real man, be there for your children, be there for your wife, be there for the friends and family that love you. That's being a good man. That's being a protector and a provider. Be the provider for them. Be there for when they need you. And to do that, you need to know to do what you know is right, which is put healthy food in your mouth and exercise so you can live and enjoy your time and be there for the people that love you. Be a good man. That's strength to me. It takes strength to do that. It's easy to follow that path and blame it on the food and blame it on the diet. And, oh, I got a heart attack. Oh, cancer just happens to people, or it's genetic. 3% of cancers are attributed to genetics. It's not genetics. It's what you put in your mouth. That's what being a strong man is being there, being a good provider, and being there for good support for the people that love and count on you every day.
Thank you. So we sometimes say in the men's circle, like, hey, I hear you big time. It's interesting. I thought I was in control for so many years. I thought it was me living life on my terms, and yet I was just following, and I was being controlled. And it has been such a liberation to experiencing what you just mentioned. Listen, Geoff, in the previous episode, there was Craig Whitney from Australia sharing stories about life as a slaughterman and how this affected him and his personal life. And we also talked about depression. And what I usually do in the episodes is I ask someone to ask a question. So I've got a question for you as well. And then I would like to ask you a question as well for the next guest. And Greg is curious. What is something deep down I don't know about you? So what is something deep down that we haven't addressed yet? We don't know about you.
Well, that the willingness to change has been my saving grace. I think, especially with men, we can be very stubborn and strong-headed. For sometimes it's more important for us to be right than to listen, than to hear and be moved to change. It's not a weakness to change, it's a strength. It's where we grow. And for me, coming from a family that was raised with a high intelligence, I was often right, knowledge-wise, academic-wise. But I was very wrong because I wasn't happy. And I couldn't figure out to be happy. And it was only when I admitted my contribution to my unhappiness that my life dramatically changed. So don't fear change. It's our fear of change that is holding us back from being amazing. Sorry.
That's right.
Fear of change is the thing that's really holding us back from being the amazing people that we are. I honestly believe we all have amazing gifts to give. We're all unique. We've all lived different lives with different scenarios, and we all have insights to share with each other we can learn and grow from. Yeah, I post online sometimes about a article that is some science, and then people, guys especially, mostly, will just try to pick apart the research so they can be right, rather than seeing what the research is talking about, the insights that it's contributing to. Look, all science is based on supposition at some point, and almost all science has been proven wrong later in life. So it's not so important about being right or wrong. That doesn't matter. It's how is that affecting you? And how is that changing your life? How is that giving you some insight to make a change that can allow your life to be more enjoyable, more fulfilling? Look, see the forest for the trees. That's
yeah. It's so interesting how the mind is wired, and for example, I saw this saying and it totally resonated with me that I or we or I much rather choose the certainty of unhappiness than the uncertainty of happiness. How crazy is this? And you were mentioning it in the beginning. So back in the days, you could put me on a funeral or a wedding, and I would not show any emotion because I'm a man and I needed to man up. So how? And that will be the last question. How would you say for a man? Okay, he knows, he gets where we are going here, and he hears your story and he knows a bit about my story, and he thinks, okay, so I'm ready for opening up. I'm ready for sharing my emotions. But how? Where do I start? What worked for you? I mean, now 35 years later, what can you say? Okay, this is what really worked for me.
So when I did that, one of the first things that I did was, like when you said, okay, now that I've opened myself up, what do I do with that? How do I apply that to life? And one is, don't settle for choices that don't align with who you are. Once you decide to say, I'm going to live my life from an empowered state, stop just taking the job that is the best, go out and find a job or start a business that aligns with you. That's why I started Clean Machine. I saw a lot of crappy products out there. I saw a lot of bad practices out there. And I said, no, I'm going to do this differently. But in order to do that, I can't tell a company to do it differently. That's not how it works. You got to sometimes do your own thing. And I encourage people to do that. Yes, it's hard. You know, I'm 7 years into this business and now I'm successful. But once you get to that place, you know, any job out there can fire you, lay you off at any day. That's zero control for you. When you can go out and start your own business, you're driving the success of that business. And it doesn't have to be just your business. It's in anything you do, in relationships. Are you settling for someone that just doesn't really resonate with you because it ticks some boxes? No, keep looking for that. When I went through the change, I traveled. I went to 48 different countries on 4 continents. I traveled and I studied cultures. I see what they were doing. I go, oh, wow, in England, they do this really right, but they do that really wrong. And then they do this that I really like. And oh my God, I've never seen a culture do this before. And I picked up so many different pieces. And you don't have to accept any one of them as a whole. I did rebirthing, which is breathwork exercise. I did shaman sweat lodges with Native American Indians. I did Buddhist chanting with Buddhist monks and did prayer vigils. And I tried lots of things and I learned bits and pieces from each one of them that really resonated with me. And let that be your building blocks. If you can learn from lots of different disciples and cultures and peoples, listen to them, but you got to really listen. Listen not just with your ears, but listen deeply. See how that resonates with you, and then take away those things that you really like and build on that. To me, if you follow your path of what you believe in, what you enjoy, you'll be the best at it because nobody enjoys it as much as you do.
I love you, man. Thank you. That is beautiful. So where can we find Clean Machine?
Clean Machine is at cleanmachineonline.com. That's, you can go to our website. We post a lot of the research there so you can read about the different amazing plants that we have. And then on social media, we're in Clean Machine Fit and both Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah, and do you ship worldwide at the moment?
We are working on that, but unfortunately right now we're just available in the United States. We're setting up distribution for Mexico and should have that done in a couple of months, hopefully. And then we'll look to Canada by the end of this year, and then hopefully the EU by early next year, hopefully.
Fantastic, yeah. Well, for the US and, did you say Canada as well?
Not quite yet.
Okay,
We're still
US.
working on that.
Okay, so if you're in the US, you know where to go. And yeah, definitely. I mean, you have a newsletter subscription as well.
Yes.
So yeah, definitely suggest to sign up for that and follow Geoff on the gram. And there's a team of athletes as well, which is really worthwhile following. It's super cool. Athletes from all over the globe, right?
Yes.
Yeah, all on a plant-based diet. You're hosting a show. You're joining exhibitions. So yeah.
Yes, we're proud to be the first to do the very first completely natural, 100% vegan, natural bodybuilding competition in the world.
Cool. When is the?
That is the World Vegan Bodybuilding Championship, and it is in Delray Beach, Florida, in November of 2020.
Fantastic. Will there be a live stream?
Yes, it will.
Cool. Yeah.
And definitely on social media. I'm not all about the products. I try to bring these plants to make them available to people. Yeah. But on social media, you can see lots of our studies. You can follow me personally, Geoff Palmer, Geoff Palmer, on Facebook, and I'm constantly posting the latest research in plant-based nutrition. So lots of good information there too as well.
Yeah, cool. I see another episode coming maybe next year when there's big news again. And I'm also curious how you can be first at all those things. Just coming from a business, but I mean, it's cool, right? If you can yeah, break through and create and manifest those beautiful products. I will be putting everything for you listening, of course, in the description as well. So don't you worry about that. Geoff, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Yeah.
Likewise, pleasure speaking with you, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about myself. And I hope it encourages people to eat right and get into fitness and choose a healthy and empowered lifestyle.